Imagine, if you will, that Porsche engineers from Zuffenhausen get into a time machine and head all the way back to 1968. There they find an obscure reference in their history to a vehicle that is not top of the range, not bottom of the range, and perhaps just a wee bit below just right, as in Goldilocks. Then they hop into the time machine, head back to 2018, and they adopt this obscure reference to today. There they make a number of changes, but the most important of which are the following. Number one, they give you things that are normally optional in other 911s, things like PASM, Porsche torque vectoring. Then they bless it with something your grandfather's grandfather had in his Oldsmobile, an old school mechanical differential. Then they sprinkle some like pixie dust on top of it by giving you lightweight glass from the GT2 RS here. Now, imagine they say, hey, you can drive and shoot that car, but you only have an hour to do it. Now be honest, if someone flipped you the keys to this thing and you had access to these roads, but they said you only get an hour, what would you do? That's what I thought. So with that, let's put our foot into this thing and understand what the hell the 911 Carrera T is about. And the first thing you notice is, it's a Carrera. It's basically the same engine. The transmission changes, but that's something we're gonna have to get into in the tech review when we get this thing back to the hangar. We really can't understand it here because the PDK negates some of that transmission change, but we still have the reduced 0 to 60 time, which is great, but not something of GT3 or Turbo S status. So with that, the other thing is driving dynamics. It's very important to understand here that PASM, Porsche torque vectoring, is fitted as standard. So this has a lower ride height than standard Carreras, and that's something you notice immediately, especially when we really screw with the plane of motion on this thing going downhill way too fast. Please do not try this at home like that, especially when you get a nice declining radius turn here. God, you almost forget how good this thing is, and especially when you go back to back from a Boxster to this. Santa Maria Madre de Dios, you can see why they've been selling these things for 55 years and those for, what, 22 years? Anyway, the thing that you really need to understand here is there is a mechanical diff that is fitted with Porsche torque vectoring and that PASM, and what I'm noticing just with this quick drive is this car is a bit sharper. Is it as sharp as that GT3 or a turbo? No, I don't think it's trying to be that. But my God, we're going downhill, going way too fast. And wow, is this thing good. But good to the point where you say balanced. That's what it is. It still has the engine in the wrong place. It's still a 911. It reminds you that inherently it is a flawed design. But once again, this is an incremental change to that flawed design where I don't know how they make these cars do the things that you are seeing on camera now, but look at this. There's so much confidence in a car that I just got in, like literally 10 minutes ago. People, I usually spend at least an hour, 2 hours getting acclimated to the car before I strap these cameras, and this, we didn't have that much time. I was just really eager to drive this thing because, you know, me and my Lotus connection, and this is, at the end of the day, the theory here is very much Lotus. What I get to is I don't know if it all works in the grand hierarchy of the 911 world, and we'll get to that later in this episode. Okay, I know we have very limited time with this thing, but I do need to interject because the whole ethos of this thing is less is more. Driver's purity, Freude am Fahren. Maybe not that last one, but you get my point. This one here, serial number ending 856 and a less than conducive to the camera white, this is anything but that because this has two options. It's got the PDK, which negates the whole specific manual transmission to the Carrera T, and it has the cool 918 race seats, which is wonderful, but it drafts out the back seat, which actually I kind of like that concept. So it's like you put something in, you take something out, you do the hoke. Anyway, the point is Frank promised me one of these in a better color with a manual transmission back at the hangar. And that's when we'll do a full tech review, and I'll go through all the changes with you, and we'll do a full first drive review. But now, back to driving. But now, excuse me to dork out a bit on a couple of small details, because you know me and the party tricks. Love me the door handles, the canvas door handles, but please can we have them in a separate color to make them really stand out? Like this and the seatbelt to match, like in a red in this case, or maybe white to match the exterior of this car. And then there is the smaller diameter wheel that's fitted as standard. This one has the 918 seats, which, you know what? I shortchanged it in that GT3. After I spent more time with that car, after I turned the cameras off, I gotta tell you, I do like these seats on a daily basis. But then again, that's a Lotus guy talking to you that has ridiculous seats in his own car. Okay, now that I got my design detail yah-yahs out of my system, we got to get back to some of the mechanical stuff, and it has to do with the name of the car. Notice it's a 911 Carrera T, which means that it can be fitted with pretty much every option that a Carrera can be fitted with. So that means, remember that Targa 4S we drove down in LA with Kumo, we put Kumo in the front. That car had the four-wheel steer system. Well, guess what this car is fitted with? So it's kind of hard to discern all of the differences of 911T with this specific car because it has four-wheel steer, so all the sharpness is a combination of the changes of the Carrera T and the fact that it has that particular option. And with that, our time is up, and I gotta say, I don't want to give this thing back. Okay, let's be honest, man, there aren't a lot of changes. This is just another derivation of 911 that they're probably going to sell every single one of them they make, but the basic car is just that good that I am going to cry like a schoolgirl when I hand the keys back to this thing because I don't want to give it up. I mean, the car I'm going back to tomorrow is a four-door sedan, a big one at that. Not a bad one, just big. It ain't this thing, and I know that I'm not getting this again until... We're going to get this in like July. I can't wait till July. Life, man, sometimes it's unfair, isn't it? Okay, so admittedly a quick and fun rather than detailed look at a very special derivation of 991.2 Carrera. Following up on this, I do promise two things. Number one, a full tech review as well as a full first drive review, both here in the hangar as well as out at Moto Canyon. And do you remember our good friend Frank from Porsche? He is the man that delivered us that GT3 when the car we were scheduled was damaged. Well, he's the man of his word, and he promised us some more things. First, a 911 Carrera T in a manual transmission. Got that, Frank? Manual transmission. So that's what we're going to use for those two episodes. And if you remember from the GT3 episode, he promised us a GT3 touring manual this summer. And then I was chatting with him about the Boxster, and he's going to send us one of those Cayman GTSs as well. So we got like a huge Porsche summer, so make sure you come back for that. In the intro, I'm going to leave you with two things. Number one, a question here. Of the stuff that I showed you today, just today, that stands out about a 911 Carrera T, what is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV all one word, MotoManTV all one word, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And number two, I want to leave you with a little inside baseball, and this one's kind of painful. Let's just say that if you are a detail-oriented OCD kind of person like myself, you noticed something missing from both this episode as well as the first drive review of the Boxster GTS, and that is the engine noise from the exterior shots. And that's because perhaps somebody may have had too much fun driving the last car of the day, which was that 911 Carrera T, and maybe the wind velocity won out over the gaff tape that held the sound system on the back of the car. And so when I got the car back to the truck driver, no sound system whatsoever. So until I see you next time, I am going to drown my sorrows out with this car here and order a new mic system. Until then, bis später. Oh my God, this thing is good. I really like this. I really, really, really like this.